Hello everyone, let's paint the Fjord. So this is a really cute Fjord medallion from Quantum Horse Ranch Studios. He just arrived today and I will be painting one of these for her sales ads. Any hoodles, I figured I'd make a nice painting tutorial. Well, I guess it's kind of a YouTube tutorial on painting a fjord. I'm going to do that classic, light, dunny colored, whatever, fjord color that you usually see. And we'll kind of play this by ear and see how it goes. So, to start off, you need some paintbrushes, some paint. I'll probably use pastels for this one. I don't know what my husband's doing upstairs. It's like moving furniture or something. I'm starting off with Sonja, there's a smoked pearl. Yeah, is this upside down? There we go. Smoked pearl. This is a great color for a lot of things, especially to mix in with your whites, so they're not so stark white. Great paint, very affordable, so I highly recommend these, especially if you're starting out, because it's a very quality paint and a very good price point. You can thin with water, but I like to use Flow Improver because it keeps the pigment even. When you thin with water too much, the bond is not as good and you get a lot of lifting. Layers will start to lift, so you'll have to like seal between a lot of layers and stuff, and ain't nobody got time for that. So yeah, so I'm just going to dip my brush into the Flow Improver. Technically you can mix this with your water, so it aids that way. You shouldn't use too much of this with the paint because it does tend to crackle if you do that, but I hardly ever have problems with it unless I like really go overboard. So I'm just going to do a layer of this. I'm using, any old brush. Actually, this one's probably too small for this part, but what is this? This is a 4 Benechi. I don't know. It's probably something from some discount set somewhere. It's synthetic, so. Alright, and we're just going to paint a layer of that all over. Okay, so we have layer 1 down. You could probably see it is streaky, which is perfectly fine. That does subside in more layers. You just don't want actual brush strokes, or hairs for that matter. I don't know why there's so many hairs in this. I literally just did this. Like, I just sprayed it. Oh yeah, so this was primed before I started, so I don't think I mentioned that yet. Actually, you can see this is already drying. I have my dehumidifier on 50, which really helps paint dry fast when I'm working. So anyway, you can see kind of, I hope, that it's a little streaky, which is totally fine. I'm going to let this dry, and I'm going to put another layer on it, and it should pretty much solidify by then, as far as streakiness goes. And I'll come back, and we'll continue on with some shading. Okay, there we have layer 2. It's still a little wet, so it still looks a little streaky, which is still perfectly fine. We'll balance all that out. Can't quite tell if it's because it's wet or if it's just streaky. But streaky, again, is fine. It just adds more layers to get the unstreakiness. Plus the pastel, as we use that, the pigment or whatever we're using, will build it back up. You just don't want any raised brush strokes. If you see some raised brush strokes, wipe off your brush on your towel so there's not really much water in it. It's almost like a dry brush. And just kind of fan out any raised paint strokes that you see. And honestly, I didn't really even use much of the thinner because this stuff goes on pretty creamy. But again, you just do have to watch your brush strokes. It takes less layers if you don't use that, but you gotta be careful. So after this layer, I think I'm just gonna move straight on to the earth pigments. They are usually the most used in the hobby. They're pretty popular. Most people have these, so I'm trying to keep this tutorial something simple, easily obtainable, stuff that you may already have on hand. I don't want to get too complex with too much stuff going all over the place, so it's kind of a challenge for me to keep this limited, but we'll see what we can come up with. Again, if you don't have Sonja's smoked pearl, you can use a warm white and mix in some like maybe a little bit of, like a smidge of black just to tone it down, as well as maybe some burnt umber, something that'll give you like a really like smoky white in a way. I mean, you can see what it kind of looks like. Kind of looks green in my camera, but it's not green. It's like a really, it's like a really light tan. So you can mix paints to get to this color if you don't have this kind of paint. That's what it looks like in the palette there. Might be easier to actually see what it looks like there. So, like I said, take some white, take a little bit of burnt umber, maybe just a dab of black to mute it down, and you'll probably have something similar to what that looks like. I think for earth, I'm going to go with Earth Pigment Light Yellow Ochre next, but I still need to let this dry a little bit before we can do that, and we'll give it a seal so it's a nice even layer for us to work on. Okay, so here we have 2 layers and a layer of sealer. I just went with regular Krylon Matte Finish. Again, keeping it simple, stuff that you may already have, the basics that a lot of people use. So, Matte Finish is a layer over this. You can still kind of streaky, but that's going to work itself out, so I'm not really worried about that. The first thing that I am going to put on here, though, before we go with the light yellow ochre, this is optional. I like to do this a lot because it really helps the color glow. It works its magic, basically. You don't necessarily see it happen, but it does. I'm going to go with some Interference Gold Pearl X. Plus, it's just fun. So, Interference Gold Pearl X, we're going to do a layer of that first before we do anything else to kind of just bring up some glow. This is a Deerfoot stippler. You can use any soft brush. I like the Robert Simmons brand. Their brushes are really soft. They got a lot of variety. They also have the stippler. This is another one I got from Michaels. But again, just a soft brush, a blush brush, any makeup brushes, they're really good. You can go to Dollar Tree and get some makeup brushes. So yeah, so let us start doing this. You want good ventilation when you do this. Technically, I really should be doing this over by my airbrush booth where it's vented outside, but I have a big studio, so it should be okay right here while I'm filming. You probably want to also wear a mask so you don't breathe this stuff in. Again, I gotta talk to you guys, so do as I say, not as I do. So yeah, let's get started. We'll do a layer of this stuff. Just look how fun that is. So yeah, we'll go over the whole thing with this. Alright, so we got a layer on. You can barely notice it, but it does give it a sheen. So, again, optional, but I like to do this to make the colors glow. You could do a couple layers of this. I think I'm only going to do one. But yeah, now I'm going to go spray this with another layer of sealer. And we're back, and it barely looks like we did anything. But again, you can see that sheen. It's very subtle, but it's there. It'll probably get covered mostly. You can, you know, put this on in after another few layers if you want to, but it's all up to you. And again, you don't have to use these exact colors. You can, you know, do your own thing. This is not the end-all, be-all way of doing it. You know, and if you don't have these specific brands and these specific colors, just get something that looks similar. Make something that looks similar. Mix some pigments and stuff like that. That's all. It's not, you know, it's trial and error. So now we're going to go in with the light yellow ochre. I'll probably do a few layers of this, and this is where we're going to try and make it solid, where it doesn't look all that streaky anymore. So I'm estimating probably a good 5 or 6 layers. I will let you know as I, you know, do it, how many it takes. Earth pigments tend to not be that strong, so it will take more layers. If you're using cheap pastels, it will take a lot of layers. So I highly recommend investing in really high quality supplies, because it makes your life go so much quicker. Well, I guess not your life go so much quicker. It makes your, you know, process go much quicker. So I'm going to do a bunch of layers of this, and I will let you know how many that is when I do it. Alrighty, so we've got a total of 6 layers of the light yellow ochre and 1 layer of the interference gold in between again. So I did 3 layers of the ochre, then I did the interference gold again, and then I did 3 more layers, and this is what we're at. Disclaimer, I don't usually work solely in like pigments and pastels, so I'm suffering through this. So it's not beautiful because there's like hairs and fuzzes and stuff. I'm trying to do this kind of quick to just show you how to get the color and everything. So take this as you will. I'll fix all this up later. But next we're going to start a little bit of the shading, because we don't want to go too dark because they're kind of light, so the light is usually really hard to do for that reason. So next I'm going to do some shading, and I'm going to start with Italian Umber, which looks like this. So you can see, maybe get a similar color. You'll probably get something like a burnt umber mixed with some white. It looks like a muted burnt umber. And then we're going to like put it in like some creases and where the shading happens on the muscles and stuff. Alright, so here we have one layer of the Italian Umber. You don't want too much. Like I said, you just want to kind of give it a little depth, but you don't really want, you know, to darken it too much. Next step now, we're going to start thinking about the muzzle and the gray parts, which is usually around the muzzle and the eye and sometimes the ears, but my reference doesn't quite have too much by the ears, and I can't tell because my mouse is not registering. So you want to start with a light gray just to get a smooth transition. I'm going with Slate here from ArtByCRiley. I need another brush because I don't want to use the other one. Little Deerfoot stippler here. This is a number 1/8 inch Deerfoot stippler. And we're just going to put some gray around the eye and the muzzle. Try not to get this area too dark. It's usually light between here and the gray. So, and my reference has a pretty light muzzle too, so we're not going to go too dark on him. You might not notice too much when you do it. Alright, now this has 3 layers on the muzzle, around the eye, and the ears there. And I also did 1 layer on the entire body. It kind of helps blend everything together when you do a little light gray over everything. As you can see, there's really not much difference. You can't really notice the gray. It's there because it's going to help you transition those darker colors a lot better, and it won't be as grainy. So yeah, I don't know what's going on in here. I gotta fix that later, like touch that up with some paint. But I think I got some pigment in the creases that you have to be mindful of when you're doing creases like this, that you brush out all the pigment before you seal it, because as you can see, it kind of gets stuck up in there. So I'll have to touch that up later, but let's just keep going with the color here. So now next we're gonna go to like a darker gray or like a black, which I find, which one is it? This one is like a grayish black, the Roman black in ArtByCRiley. So we're going to do a little bit of that now. Basically, not on the whole body. This one's too dark for that. This is going to start blending the muzzle and the eye. So that's 2 layers of that on the muzzle and the eye. I didn't do much in the ear, maybe just a smidge. We don't really want that too dark. I also went and did 1 more layer of the Italian Umber, just to kind of bring out a little bit more of that shading. And don't be afraid to like take those lighter colors and help with your blending when you're doing the darker ones. For example, when I was doing this, I would take the darker part in these last 2 layers. I took the slate and helped me blend in here, so it's not so stark. Also, you have to be very careful when doing light colors, especially when you're doing dark colors like this for the dark points. Don't blow your pigment into the lighter colors. Blow it outside. Make sure it's like, before you spray it, make sure there's no dark pigment anywhere else, because that is just going to go and you're going to see it. So next, what I'm going to do is go a little darker. I guess I'll try with Vine Black because it's about a step darker before we really get onto the dark stuff. Vine Black, and we're going to do pretty much the same thing, but we're not going to do the whole area of it. I'm just going to do like in the nostril, in the creases, just to kind of actually shade the darker area now, because my reference doesn't really have that dark of a muzzle. So yeah, we're going to do that. I keep leaving my brush over there. Sorry, I'm taking this over to the ventilation area to work because I don't want to get my whole area dusty, so that's why you're not really seeing me do the whole thing. But I do start it here so you can kind of see how I'm doing it, and then I take it over so I don't have to, you know, don't kill my lungs or my workspace. So and And that is now 2 layers of that. You could see like in the creases and stuff, it's darker in the nostril and everything. We don't want to get like super black everywhere. We just want to, you know, hint at the gray skin there. If you want, you can take it one step further in the really recessed places like the nostril, under the mouth in here and in here. I'm going to use Pan Pastel Black. This is very dark. You don't want to do this right on top of something light. You don't want to do this if you don't want like black. I love this stuff, but it's dark. So it'll cause super graininess if you're doing it. If I took this and tried to do this just on its own, it would have just been so grainy. But because we started so light and we kept going darker and darker and darker, it takes away the graininess. So I'm just going to do this for the very, 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 very dark parts. And it's probably only going to need 1 layer. Again, you don't have to do this. You can keep going with the other one. It'll take more layers, but you'll get there. This just saves me some time. Alright, all sealed, and I think I'm digging the body color. I don't think it really needs much more. If you want to add some more shading, if you want to add some more of the Pearl X, go for it. Again, it's up to you. I'm just doing this really quickly, really basic. Like, I'm probably going to go back into this and fiddle with this on my own, but I just want to like show you, you know, all you really need is 1, 2, 3. You don't really need all the fancy super stuff to achieve what you need to achieve. Of course, you probably have to do it, you know, a little more carefully than I'm doing it here. Like, there's a lot of like dust and fuzz I got in here because I'm using like older brushes that I haven't really cleaned out and like just not really being careful. So just be careful. It'll come out smoother than this, but hopefully this is helpful in just achieving this color. So I am happy with this body color myself. I am now going to move on to the details, and we'll also cover that as well, so we can get this full complete picture of how to paint a fjord. So what I'm going to start with again is that smoked pearl. Again, it's a nice color for the main, the lighter parts anyway. Yeah, so we're going to do that as a layer. Here we go. We have a whole layer of the smoked pearl on the main, just 1 layer. You can do 2 layers if you want, but 1 layer should be fine. Probably better because then it shows through some of the other stuff like a shadow. Kind of work with what you got there. You can actually see how different we got after all the pigments and stuff, because that was our base layer color, if you remember. So that's what it started out as, and now you can see the difference on how much it actually built up, and you don't really realize it when you're working on it. So next thing I'm going to do is take some Pearl White. Pearl White. This is optional. You don't really need this. Again, just like the Interference Gold, it kind of like gives a little bit of a punch to things. So optional, you don't have to. Just a smidge of that. And Titanium White. And we're also going to mix in a little bit of that smoked pearl so it's not so stark. And this is going to be our highlights to the main. So this is kind of going to be considered our shadow color. Yeah, so let's mix some of that together and see what we get. So here's the Titanium White. I'm going to take some of that Pearl White, probably close to equal amount there. Mix that up. This here is my Flow Improver. You kind of need that when you use the pearlescent colors because it's thicker. And then just a smidge of the smoked pearl. We don't want it too dark. We want it different. Just enough to tone that stark white down. That looks perfect, actually. So you can see, hopefully, maybe sort of the difference. That's the Titanium White. This is our color now. That's the smoked pearl. So you can kind of see it's a slightly bit darker than the Titanium White. Let me see if I put it right next to it. You can kind of see that. And we're going to do that on the highlights. Clean off my brush. Technically you should not mix with a brush because you ruin your brushes that way, but I don't know. I just do it anyway. So we're just trying to avoid a little bit of the recesses, kind of a little bit of a dry brushing going on. Probably want a smaller thing to control. Oops. And don't be afraid to go back and forth with that smoked pearl also to shade as you're going. It's a lot easier to wet blend when you do that. See, I'll do it right here and show you. See, and then I take some of that smoked pearl and I come back in here and blend that in. So we're kind of just getting some variety in that mane and lightening it up a little bit. There we go. So I got the lighter color on the top. You can just kind of see in the lighter spots, like where the sun would be hitting, just the lighter areas, and it gives it more of a, you know, hairy looking feel to it. The thinner your brushes that you do this with, the more hair-like it would look. It's just kind of annoying to do it with a thin brush because it does take, you know, forever because you know, you can't really treat it like a thicker brush. I missed a spot. Hold on. Hold on. So, this may look a little funny right now and sloppy because it kind of went out of the lines, but we're going to fix that right now when we're going in with the darker color. So what I'm going to start with actually is Burnt Umber. Where'd it go? Sonja Burnt Umber. And this is going to be the lighter color of the dark color, if that makes sense. It just gives it more depth. And it's kind of done in the opposite way of the light parts of the white area, like, because it's not necessarily highlight, it's more like the hair color. I don't know how to explain it, but it just looks better sometimes. So I'm going to start with the Burnt Umber and do that in between the whites here. And I might put a little bit in the mane because sometimes you can see the reminiscence of the dorsal in the mane there. So I might put a couple little streaks in there. And I don't remember if I mentioned I did a very light of the smoked pearl in the ears here too, to give it a little bit of a hairy feel, if you can kind of see that. Okay, so now we're going in with the Burnt Umber in between the whites here. It's very dark, so it almost may look like black in the camera, but it's not. This is the Burnt Umber. Yeah, it's coming together nicely now. So we have the Burnt Umber in the dark parts of the mane. I also added a little bit in the forelock here and blended it in with the smoked pearl. I also took a very little bit and put it in the really deep recesses of the light part and also blend that in with the smoked pearl. And we did a very little bit in the center of the ear there just to bring it back as a shadow. And I also started the dark points with the Burnt Umber because we don't want it too stark, so we don't want to do that in all black. I'm only going to do a little bit of black maybe on the tip there, but that's pretty much it for the ear. So now what I'm going to do is take the carbon black and shade the dark parts of the Burnt Umber. You don't need too much because this is a very dark Burnt Umber. So I'm going to go into the darkest parts and just kind of add some texture basically to the brown. And there you have it. This is pretty much the mane and the body now. What I did, I took the black and you could barely see it. Even in life, you can't really see it too strongly. You'll probably see it more when you seal it, but it still adds that depth without you realizing it. So I did some black in the creases and just some lines and stuff to, you know, to really give it some depth. And very tippy top of the ears, I put the black. And I added a little bit in the nostril, just a very thin layer, and I also lined inside the mouth here to really bring that back and bring out the face. I also painted the eyeball black right now, so we can get ready to start doing that. We usually like to start with the black base there. You can kind of see where the eyeball is to start, and then we can figure all that out as we go. So the next thing I'm going to do is mix some burnt sienna, the Sonja. Again, I'm using Sonja here because these are a good quality, low cost paint and great for starting out with. You can use any brand. There's color, you know, they vary a little by brand, but those colors are pretty standard colors, and they're really good colors to have on hand regardless. So again, if you have a different brand of burnt sienna, a different brand of, you know, whites and stuff, feel free to use those. You don't have to use exactly this. But if you have absolutely nothing and you want to go shopping for stuff and to try and do your first painting, I recommend Jo Sonja. That's why I'm trying to keep this all very simplified and very to one brand of each paint. I don't have a couple of colors in the Jo Sonja that I'm going to show you, so again, you can use Jo Sonja, you can use whatever you have on hand. So what we're going to do is take the burnt sienna and mix that a little bit with the titanium white, and you're going to get like a sandy type pink. If you have a color like that, that's great too. Use that instead. So we're going to get this like sandy looking pink, and we're going to put that in the corner of the eye where like the skin would be, where he's looking. So we're going to have him looking at us, and it looks like it's even sculpted in here, so we're going to put this little skin piece right in here. Let me see if I can... Don't worry about being too neat, but keep it in the eyeball, because you don't want to get on that body color, because that's going to be tough to fix with pigments. Okay, got that there. So we have the pink in the corner of the eye, like so. So this can kind of act as the direction of the eyeball, because most horses, you don't see the sclera, which is the white, very often. It's often just the pink skin, except in like some Appaloosas, or if they're really stretching their eye and like wall-eyed and stuff like that. So I tend to not use too much white when I do this, and kind of let this act as my directional, if that makes sense. So now that we have that, we're going to take a little smidge of that burnt umber and kind of clean up the edge of that in a way. Don't get rid of the light part too much. Just kind of clean this up and give it a little dark shadow right at the edge where the eyeball is going to be looking. And try and keep this thin. Don't want it too thick. You kind of want it transparent over that color. And again, you don't have to be too neat on the edge yet, because we're going to come back with the black. See if you can see what I'm doing here. The paint is drying really fast because of the dehumidifier on, so it's a little difficult sometimes. There, that's what I wanted. Okay, and I'm going to take a little bit of that pinkish again and just kind of clean that up. That's if I can get it where paint's not dry. There we go. This is actually even a little lighter than the last time. We're going to leave that dark area close to the black that we painted. Just kind of solidify that a little bit. In the corner. Okay. I think that's what I want. Well, this has it sculpted over here. So also follow the sculpture. And where it has this sculpted, some has it sculpted more so than others. So I'm trying to keep in that area where it has that. And sometimes you might have to clean it up with a little bit of the black, but not too much, because you don't want it too stark. Like so. There, I think that's pretty good. Might want a little bit more over here. So it does take some fiddling sometimes. But, so you want to get it generally how you want the eye to look. Basic. You know, like We're not putting detail in yet, but this is basically how it's going to look when it's done with the detail. So if your eye is not looking, you know, circular and whatnot, you want to address that now. Get it to where you want it, and there you have it. So, got my eye pretty good. Now we're going to take that black again, and now we're going to actually clean up that edge on where exactly we want the iris to start. So, alright, so we have mostly an eye so far. Now we're just going to have to detail that iris and put the pupil in. Again, this is how I want it to look when it's done, you know, except just have detail with the iris and stuff. You can see that closer. Next, we're going to go in with a bronze color. Right now I'm using the Liquitex ink for the bronze. Iridescent rich bronze, but any bronze color will do. I don't have a bronze in Jo Sonja or pretty much anything else, so if you just get a bronze. That's all. Bronze color in whatever brand you desire or have. Now we're going to take the bronze and leave a thin line of the black on the outside, and we're going to put our iris in. So I like to start in the center and then kind of push it out to the edges. I'll link a video in the description also of an eye painting tutorial I did a while ago. So it goes into more detail on this as well, with other brands and stuff I normally use. Because I don't normally use all this stuff, honestly. I use whatever works in different brands and paints and oils and this and that. So. Okay, so we've got the bronze on there, and we left a very thin line along the edge. Hopefully this is showing up. Can't quite tell until I put it on the computer. We have a thin black line, and the rest is pretty much bronze. Thin black line all around. Okay, so next we are going to take our burnt sienna and make it very thin. And when that bronze is dry, make sure it's dry, we're going to do a light layer of this on top of it. It kind of knocks back the potent, like, bam of that metallic. So we're going to do a little very light layer of the burnt sienna on top of the bronze. Super light. Super transparent. Bada bing, bada boom. There. See, it kind of took out that super shine. But it was very thin. Very, very thin. So we could still see that metallic underneath, but it doesn't really give us too much of a potent sting, if you will. Next, we'll go back into that burnt umber. And now we're going to make the shadow of the eyelid on the iris, eyeball, whatever. You're just going to pretty much do the top half of that bronzy part that you just did. We're going to have to wait for this to dry though, because you can't really do this when it's wet yet. You kind of want to start when it's dry, because it'll start lifting things. So let me let that dry a little bit, or I'll take the heat gun to it real fast so we can continue this on. Alright, that's dry enough. So now we're going to take that burnt umber, like I said, and do the same sort of thin layer we did with the sienna. But we're only going to do it on the top half of the eyelid and kind of sort of start hinting at where that pupil is going to be. And you can do little like liney thingies up and down, and it kind of blends it to where it gives it some iris looking detail. But you don't want to cover the whole thing because you want to leave a lighter area at the bottom. If you have to go back into that burnt sienna and kind of bring it back up into there, you do so like this. But again, you also don't want to get too heavy because you want to keep that metallic coming through. And I think that looks pretty good. Pretty good. A little bit of that right there. And this is a very dark burnt umber, so you gotta be careful with this one. So there we have it, where it is lighter on the bottom, darker on the top, and we kind of have a hint of where the pupil's gonna go now. Hoping this shows up well enough. And now we take the black and we're putting that pupil in. Pretty much right in the center there. And remember that horse pupils are oblong, they are not circular, and they tend to stay parallel to the ground no matter what, for the most part. So this pupil is going to be like so. I like to put in a little guideline first, and then we go back in and refine that. Pupil there, and then again up and down motion really blends it nice and makes it really look like the detail of the pupil and the iris there. And again, you can make this as, you know, close to your reference as you'd like. You can make it a wide pupil, you can make it a narrow pupil, like if there's a lot of light for the horse. Really up to you what you like it to look like. I'm thinking that's pretty good right there. Ta-da! There you have it. There's pretty much your Fjord. You just got to seal this up and do your background. So I'll go and seal that so you can see what it all looks like when it's one sort of finish, and gloss the eye because that is makes a big factor there. But here's the eye if you can see it now. Oh, I almost forgot. Aderba. Gold. Again, I don't have gold in Jo Sonja. I only have the interference gold, which is not what I want here. I want this gold, just gold. Again, you can get a Jo Sonja gold or whatever brand gold you have. You're only going to need like a little drop of this. Can't believe I almost forgot. You're going to take this and do a very, very small, thin enhancement to where the light would hit the eye. Like, barely anything. But it gives it a gleam. There we go. Now that gives it like a gleam. And there you have it. So let's seal this up. Actually, first, let's put a quick background in here so we can kind of get a good feel for how this whole thing's going to look. I tend to think that a dark green is usually really nice with this color. So let's plop that on there and see what it looks like. And ta-da! Here it is, your Fjord. So it has a layer sealer over the whole thing, so now we're like one sort of even finish here. I'll probably gloss this background. I mixed a bunch of greens and gold. Gloss the eye, the nostril, and a little bit of the mouth there. And there you have it. that's how you paint a fjord. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful. I tried to keep it simple and with not a lot of materials. Very good for beginners. So yeah, please like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I will put a link in the description to where you can get one of these medallions from. And yeah, so thanks for watching. Bye.